Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. It's Thursday, the 27th of November. Thank you so much for joining me as we take a look at the weekend weather and the outlook for next week. And between now and the weekend, a fair bit of energy coming out of the Tasman Sea. There are a number of reasons why we're getting all different types of weather at the moment, and I'll show you in a moment the different highs and the lows that are doing that. But for now, Australia sending us some thunderstorms coming into the west coast today, moving northwards as we go through the day. It'll fall apart more so as it moves into the North Island. Windy nor'westers, they'll be moving northwards up into the lower part of the North Island, some eastern areas as well. That's why temperatures are up. Some places, into the upper 20s, lower 30s. So that's a pretty warm to hot set of weather coming through. And then you've got all the cloud as well. Some thick cloud coming in over the South Island, lower level clouds around the North Island, or some of that western side now building up as that front moves closer towards us. So we are expecting cloudy conditions to move on through. So on the air pressure map, as I said, there are a number of things driving our weather at the moment. We've got this huge area of low pressure south of the country, south of both the South Island and Tasmania. So very deep low pressure, stormy kind of stuff. But then you head out here to the east, we've got a really big area of high pressure, and north of New Zealand, another area of high pressure. And it's these two highs that are the anticyclonic flow in them, dragging down that humid, more subtropical airflow, and that's what we've been seeing. So that carries on going into tonight for the North Island and the very top of the South Island, and the cooler airflow comes in behind it, but it's still a nor'wester for some of you. So it may not actually be a huge temperature drop to begin with, but we do expect these low pressure zones south of New Zealand to dredge up some colder air. It's already starting over in Tassie today. So as we look at the Friday setup, you can see the polar boundary getting close to Tasmania, but also Stewart Island, Southland, Fiordland. Temperatures will start to drop the closer you are to that blue line. Further northwards, southwesterly winds moving into the country, or westerlies still around, and they may even be a little bit more northwest for some eastern areas. Now with that front that you just saw with all the thunderstorms, that falls apart a lot as it moves into the North Island as we go into tomorrow. But with the daytime heating and that front with that bit of energy inside it, we do expect a few thunderstorms, a few heavy showers around, anywhere really around the North Island, and maybe one or two even popping up through the South Island. There is high pressure nearby, so it's not as dramatic as you might think, considering very stormy just south of New Zealand. But those storms pretty much stay south of us. Here we are on Saturday, high pressure just north of New Zealand, low pressure south of us, quite a big air pressure gradient, but most of that begins from the lower South Island to south of New Zealand. So windy weather is mostly south of us. But there will be a bit of a nor'west wind picking up for Southland, Otago, South Canterbury, coming out of parts of Australia again, so not cold. And the southwesterly in the North Island, that will start to fade away as we go through Saturday. By Sunday, northwesterly winds again return for the North Island. Warm weather for most of you, hot for some of you in the east. In the South Island, low pressure moving closer, so that's going to change things at some point. Rain or showers developing on the west coast, and we'll see some of that weather spreading eastwards as we go into the later part of Sunday or even into Sunday night. The polar boundary returning over here to Australia, and the reason why that's important is because here's Monday, the 1st of December, which is summer on the meteorological calendar. I understand the astronomical calendar's a few more weeks away, but it's summer on the meteorological calendar, which means news outlets all across New Zealand and Australia will announce summer is here. And that's fine, no problem with that. But look at the weather happening over in Australia. Adelaide, Melbourne, Hobart, about to be under a polar boundary, wintry weather conditions. In other words, the temperatures are just right down. At this time of the year, the snow levels going up, but it's going to be cold over there. Also getting colder for Fiordland, Stewart Island, moving through into Southland and maybe even Otago a bit later on into Monday. Southwesterly winds or westerly winds blowing in a number of regions around New Zealand. A few showers or patchy rain over there on the west coast. We go to Tuesday of next week, that energy leaving Australia with that polar change, helping to produce this low pressure zone. And you wait till we see Wednesday's map. So there's a little bit of an unsettled day around New Zealand on Tuesday. By that I just mean you can see some areas, these circles, bit of a sign of some instability in the atmosphere. It may not be quite as settled here and there when you've got you can have varying wind directions bumping into each other, producing cloud buildups that you see there in the South Island. Otherwise, not a bad day, lighter winds, that's for sure, after some of the windier weather we've been having. But I told you to think about Wednesday. That is a very large low pressure zone covering much of the Tasman Sea. Sometimes large doesn't mean dramatic, sometimes it makes them a bit lazy in the middle, but this one's worth keeping an eye on. Windy nor'westers coming in beginning of this low, and some heavy rain, which, as we've just seen, there could be thunderstorms attached to that coming out of Australia as it does so. But absolutely, this is one to keep an eye on next week. Air pressure getting down to 978, very large. That means instability, especially when you add on December's daytime heating to lows like this, and that can produce heavy, thundery falls here and there. Either way, though, apart from some cold weather briefly just brushing the lower part of New Zealand, we are not seeing the same cold blast that our brothers and sisters are over in Australia in that southeast corner. It's hot in other parts of Australia, but not so much in Victoria and Tasmania, and a lot of New Zealand's weather is coming from that direction at the moment. So we're in a messy weather pattern. La Nina is showing some signs. The Southern Ocean is still busy. I personally think we're still in that neutral period where anything can happen, but we're getting a lot of westerly driven weather at the moment, so that's worth keeping an eye on, especially as we go into next week. That is all from me for today. A programming note, not here tomorrow, Friday, so I will be back again on Monday next week, December the 1st. I'll see you then.